Exactly. I want to open it up to the audience in just a moment, but we need to talk about the nuclear standoff for a moment. Yesterday in Iran was National Nuclear Technology Day, and President Ahmadinejad took the opportunity to announce that they were installing 6,000 additional centrifuges of a more sophisticated form at their uranium enrichment facility in Natanz. Jessica, do you think Iran is building a bomb or wants to build a bomb?
I think Iran wants to get to the point where it has the capability to make a bomb in 3 months. Basically, I think Iran wants to be Japan. I think in all the years I've worked in policy, I don't think I have ever seen a worse situation in the matter of U.S. policymaking, just U.S. policymaking, than our combination of sort of public statements and then the NIE, the National Intelligence Estimate, the recent one, which has left, I think, the entire American population completely confused. By virtue of the first sentence of the public summary of this report, which is all anybody knows about it, which has been portrayed in the press and which in fact said that we now judge that Iran is no longer pursuing a nuclear weapon. When what it meant was, and what they could have written, is that it's no longer pursuing, or it's suspended in 2003, the weaponization piece of making a nuclear weapon. There are basically 2 tracks you have to do to make a nuclear weapon. You have to make fuel, either highly enriched uranium or plutonium, and then you have to learn how to make the casing and the trigger and the various pieces of engineering into which you put it. And under the NPT, this is the Achilles heel of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, so long as you pursue those 2 things separately, you can in fact be making highly enriched uranium or plutonium, and it's totally legal. And the NPT is silent about, so long as you were not doing it openly, about making the. And what the intelligence community found was that in 2003, Iran had suspended this piece, but it certainly hasn't suspended making enriched uranium. And it has no use for low-enriched uranium. None at all, because under contract, the Russians provide the fuel for Iran's reactor. And, basically indefinitely forward. So my own view, at least, is that Iran would like, if it can, to create a stockpile of HEU. And my guess is, if it can, at an appropriate time, resume the work on the casing, the trigger, and stuff, and never put them together unless the time comes when they need to, which is consistent with what all the Supreme Leader has said. But I do think that the NIE did an extraordinary disservice, both to American diplomacy and to American understanding of where we are. The other important thing is that Iran stopped negotiating with us, with the West, on nuclear in 2005. And since then, we've been negotiating with ourselves.
And with the Europeans.
Well, we don't like that deal. How about this deal? Yeah. But with Iran, one thing about Iran is when they're negotiating with you, you are not in any doubt that you're negotiating. And they have not been negotiating. Right. They said, well, you offered us, beautiful phrase, the former chief negotiator, you offered us chocolate for diamonds. But they haven't been trying to improve the chocolate. So they're not negotiating. So we're negotiating with ourselves.
Yeah. And with our allies. That's been a big
by
part of
ourselves.
it.
That's what I mean.
Let me ask you this. One of the things that we hope would come out of the process we've been engaged in is some ideas, some concrete ideas. And one of those ideas has now been published publicly in an article in the New York Review of Books a few weeks ago, which offered a concept for ending the standoff on nuclear, which was, and the idea is, and this came right out of these discussions we've been having, was for Iran and the international community to agree to convert their uranium enrichment facility at Natanz into a joint venture, in essence, in which international technicians and Iranian technicians would enrich low-enriched uranium for its domestic energy purposes with the supervision of the International Atomic Energy Agency, 365, 24/7 weapons inspectors on the ground, with a lot of technological safeguards. It's not 100% fail-safe, as you know, and Jessica and her colleagues at the Carnegie Endowment, in my view, have done probably the most creative and comprehensive work thinking about how to revitalize the non-proliferation regime. What's your reaction to this idea as a way of finding a compromise that Iran might live with and that the U.S. might live with?
Well, I wish I feel, again, like a dog in the manger. I don't think it will work because it presumes that there is a valid, economically rational reason for what they're doing. That is to say that there is a market for the low-enriched uranium that will be produced. And I don't think either the French or the Germans, which was suggested as the multilateral partners, would do it. Unless it's as a total pretend operation, because the Iranian, as you know, Steve, the Iranian enrichment operation is lousy, technically. So France and Germany would have to it would have to be a kind of a Potemkin collaboration. And it would cost a lot. Now, it might cost less than sanctions if you could reach a deal. But we have talked to the French since this came out, and they just say, no way. Well, that may or may not sit. But the problem is, what I think its Achilles heel is that it sort of tears the veil off exactly what is the pretense in the Iranian enrichment program, which is that it has a valid non-weapons purpose.
Yeah.
And I don't see how you get around that.
I understand the point, and Vali wants to jump in, but we should keep in mind, too, that ironically, of course, it was the United States that encouraged Iran under the Shah to start a nuclear energy program in the first place.
That's right.
Well, that's true. Actually, all of those scientists who are running the program are graduates of MIT and Berkeley, and some of them are fairly westernized. But I think also the part of the issue that Jessica said that we often negotiate with ourselves is that we sort of go at this issue as if it's about the nuclear issue. For the Iranians, any kind of a movement on the nuclear issue has to be the result of successful engagement, not a precursor to successful engagement. And one of the former commanders of the Guard in Revolutionary Guards in Iran put it in the following way, that the United States is on a frontal attack on Iran, on nuclear issue, democracy, terrorism, human rights. We have the strongest case on the nuclear issue. Either the nuclear issue has to solve everything, or there is no point even talking to the U.S. And essentially what he says that, Iran has a sort of a day after problem. The day after it accepts this deal, if there is no roadmap to a normalized relations, then it's pointless to make that concession.